Oh yeah, what's up everybody? Welcome to the Artists of Data Science Happy Hour number 40. This is the 40th week in a row we've been doing this, man. I can't believe that. 40 weeks in a row we've been here, live and direct, man. Answering you guys' questions, building this community. Couldn't be happier to be here with you guys every single Friday. Shout out to everybody trickling into the room. We got my man Ken G in the house. Ken, what's up? We got Antonio. Antonio, man, good to see you again. Russell, my friend, how's it going? Man, we got Vin Vashista entering into the room. Nisha, what's going on? Man, super excited to have all of you guys here. Hope you guys had a good week. Can't believe it's already first of all, I can't believe I've been doing this for 40 weeks. It's insane to me. It's just, that's wild. Another few months and it'll be a year straight. So that's cool, man. But yeah, hopefully you guys' week has been good. Got a chance to hang out with my friend Mike Delgado on the Data Talk podcast earlier this week. That was a really special episode for me. Mike was the first person that I had reached out to, one of the first people that I reached out to be on my podcast. And I actually went through his list of people who he had on his podcast. And I was like, if this person's been on one podcast, maybe they might want to be on another one. And so that's how I kind of poached his audience list. Released an episode today with Barbara Oakley. She wrote the book A Mind for Numbers. She is the teacher behind the course Learning How to Learn, the most popular MOOC on Coursera. So that was a great episode. Released that today, but we recorded it on January 3rd. So it's quite a bit delayed. But yeah, man, super excited to have you guys here. If you guys have questions wherever you are, whether it is on YouTube, Twitch, or LinkedIn, go ahead and leave your question right there in the chat and we will get to it. There's also a link wherever you are to get into the room as well. So do join in on that. Christian, what's going on, man? Super happy to have you here as well. Antonio is asking what's been my favorite podcast episode I've done. Antonio, in terms of like ones I've been on or ones that I've recorded?
That you've recorded.
Yeah, I mean, two of my top favorite ones that I've recorded, without a doubt, it's got to be with Vin Vashista and Ken G. But barring those two,
good answer.
Barring those two, I'd say a few of my favorite ones haven't even been released yet. But the ones that have been released, definitely Robert Greene. That was a really cool episode to do. Next week, I got one releasing with James Altucher, and that's one of my favorite ones as well. So I really enjoyed that. Matt Diamond, what's going on? Annie Duke, yeah, I forgot I had an interview with Annie Duke as well. That's crazy, man. All these interesting people I've had a chance to interview. But yeah, let's go ahead and get this thing kicked off. If you guys got questions, let me know right there in the chat wherever you are. I'll be monitoring all platforms. But let's get it started with a warm-up question. All right, so how about this? So we've man, I should have thought about this before I went live. How about this? Talk to me about for those of you who know how to do NLP or have been learning about NLP, would you guys be able to share some resources or share some tips with us? And by us, I mean mostly me, because I'm trying to learn that as well. If anybody here has any experience with that, let me know. In the meantime, I'll be looking for questions in the chat and on LinkedIn and everywhere else. But if you don't have any insight onto that, then go for it and ask your question. Russell, I see you got a question here in the chat. Go for it.
Evening, Harpreet. Everyone else. So, I'm just interested to know, from 40 episodes in there, so that's a lot. What's been the most interesting mess up in all of that time, or what have you learned the most from?
The most interesting mess up in terms of we had
just something that went wrong.
Oh man, I mean, I feel like the beginning parts of most episodes go kind of wobbly because I'm trying to get the conversation going and started. But I mean, I remember there's one week where I was talking and I think I left my microphone on mute for a good 30 seconds or something like that. And that was right around April-ish or something like that. But I was just looking through some of the back catalog of, the past 40 episodes. And there's a period of time when there was 40 to 50 people in these things right around winter time, and that was a lot of fun, man. Some of the early ones like number 10, 11, 9, 10, 11 have a lot of great insight information. Those are just ones I was looking at in particular for today. But yeah, shout out to everybody on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, monitoring the comments. So if you guys have any questions, please do let me know. But yeah, other than that, let's turn to you guys, man. How you guys been doing? Vin, what's going on, man? Nice shirt, by the way. I like that.
Yeah, we coordinated, right? We called before. It's Aloha shirt, Aloha Friday.
I love it, man. I love it.
I usually practice, but I'm off my game today.
Man, practice just being awesome. How
practice Aloha Friday.
Aloha Friday. Is that an actual thing?
Yeah, every job I've ever been at, I instigated Aloha Friday or instituted. I don't know exactly what the right word is there, but a good way to pick up morale. You know, who looks unhappy in a Hawaiian shirt ever?
Yeah, for real, man. I didn't know Aloha Friday was a thing. I just coincidentally happened that I'm always wearing these.
No, it is. Yes, we even have a song about it back home. There is an Aloha Friday song.
So wait, Vin, are you from Hawaii?
Yep, born and raised.
No shit, dude. When did you move to the mainland?
Yeah, no, the shirt's official. This has been approved Hawaiian shirt.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I did not know that you were actually from Hawaii. That's pretty cool, man. But yeah, man. So let's go ahead, man, and see if there's any questions in the chat. So Russell asking biggest mess ups. How about this one? Not having a question lined up for the beginning of happy hour. I've been grinding all day, man. I've been really trying to learn natural language processing, mostly because I'm sitting on just a huge amount of text data from the transcripts of all the previous podcasts, all the previous happy hours, Comment ML office hours, all that stuff. I just feel like there could be something that I could do with all that data. So I started cleaning a lot of it, but it's really, really tedious. So I'm starting to outsource that, looking for people on Upwork to clean up those transcripts, because the automatic translation, gets about 90-ish% of it. Ken, I saw you as
yeah, well, two things. Vin, I didn't know you're from out here. I live in Oahu now, so if you're ever back out this way, let me know. Second thing, I know one of my friends, Abhishek Thakur, is working at Hugging Face, so they're doing auto NLP. Could be a cool product to look into. Good platform. He is an absolute rock star and definitely knows what he's doing on that front. So he also might be a good person to reach out to chat with. He's a really good guy and always looking to help.
Yeah, he's the Kaggle Grandmaster guy, right?
The first 4-time Grandmaster.
Yeah. He's got a lot of awesome stuff. I didn't know he was out there at Hugging Face working on a product like that. I've definitely got to go check that out. But yeah, man, let's turn it over to the audience. You guys help me out here. If you guys have any questions, please do let me know. It has been a long week for me, so my brain is a bit fried.
I have a question for you guys. I guess this is for everybody that's creating content. Like, what was that moment, Harpreet, Ken, I know Vin, that where you kind of got over in the hump and said, like, all right, today's the day I actually started recording this podcast? Or, because I know for me, I started recording some stuff, but it was quite a few months where I'm like, well, I'll start and I'll do it tomorrow, but then something inside you, it doesn't. And then one day it just clicks. So, but I'm still not there yet. Like, you've been doing this for 40 weeks straight. I guess it's a habit for you now. But if you could share a little bit about kind of like, what is that got you to take action?
Yeah, dude. I was like, when I first started the podcast, I was thrashing a lot, right? Like, I'd recorded a bunch of episodes, but then I was like, I don't know what the format is going to be. Like, I wanted to do it like a talk show where it would be like part opening monologue, then it would be the interview, then it would be like audience questions, stuff like that. I had like this thing planned out, and I just noticed that I was just wasting time writing monologues, right? And just I was like, dude, this is not useful. It's not getting anything done. I've got like 12 episodes recorded. I need to push these out. I need to do something with it. Otherwise the momentum's just going to die. So it was just then I was like, all right, well, I know for a fact what I'm doing is not conducive to my ultimate goal, which is just to put stuff out there. Right. And I just said, fuck it. I'm just going to do interview shows. Like that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm going for. And at that moment, I just kind of let it rip. And then from there, just trajectory has been insane. Ken, what about you, man? Because you're like almost what you said. We were talking yesterday for a while, Ken, and it was cool connecting with you. You did like 130 videos already, or like 200 videos, something like that.
I think I'm almost at 200. And we actually talked a little bit about this yesterday. I think it's pretty important is that once you start building momentum, that's a beautiful thing and you can continue from that. But in order to create momentum, you need volume. And I think you should produce good stuff out there. Like you don't want to put out stuff. You don't want to just like throw a bunch of stuff out there and it all be trash. But if you can get to a point where you're producing consistently, where you've got a good backlog, a lot of content, that's where you grow the most. One of my favorite things, it was either like an art class or like a photography class, right? And the professor essentially said that half of the class is tasked with taking one picture and making it as good as possible. That's what they'll be graded on. And the other half of the class is going to be evaluated on how many pictures that they take, just purely on volume. And it turned out that the half of the class in both of these scenarios that were in charge of volume, just putting stuff out there, they took significantly better pictures. In the pottery class, they made significantly better pottery because they were getting the reps in. So if we're looking at content creation as this consistent journey, this iterative process, that is how you create that momentum. That's how you get to that point. Like now it's just like, I look at every piece of content that I create as a way that I'm improving my future content. So it isn't this like, oh, I have to get to this threshold. Every single, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's my podcast, whether it's a YouTube video, it's all just like part of this moving train that's going forward. And I think that we get a little bit kind of too wrapped up in the early stages too, because nobody looks at our stuff in the early stages. So you can like, frankly, make the quality not quite as good, but make sure it is practice. Make sure you're getting those reps in, because when it is starting to get traction, when you are getting viewership, you'll be glad that you put in those hours before, that no one was watching your stuff when you were making the mistakes. And that's okay, right? Like if someone sees that I made a YouTube video 2 years ago and it like, frankly, wasn't that good, the editing is crap, hopefully the advice and stuff is good. They'll see a video that I've made now and be like, wow, this person has improved so much. That's what they're going to be evaluating against. It's not going to be like, oh, he made this video 2.5 years ago and it was trash. They'll be like, wow, look at his new video versus this one. This person has come so far along the way, and they get to be a part of that journey, which I think is incredible as well.
I like that. Thanks for sharing.
Absolutely, dude. I love that too. And I mean, just speaking about like the process of creating, do you find yourself like thrashing, like, purposely doing stuff that isn't moving the needle forward just because you kind of feel stuck? Like for me, for the longest time, it was editing. Like I used editing my podcast as a distraction for other things related to my podcast. And then I just finally realized that, okay, I can't waste my time doing this because this particular task isn't going to really impact the output of or quality of the podcast, which for me was because I need to ask good questions. I need to research the guest. I need to understand their body of knowledge. Like that's where I should spend my time, not editing the podcast and stuff like that. You just kind of tend to outsource. Did you come across any issues like that, Ken or Vin or anybody else out here that creates content?
I'll let Vin go first, and then I definitely have some thoughts on that one.
Yeah, definitely.
No, you carry the momentum. I'll chime in afterwards.
Sounds good. So one thing that I've found is I also have that problem, right? There are plenty of things that I don't see as much value in, and I know that I probably should do them or have to do them or whatever that might be. About a year ago, I think it was 2019, I decided to devote all of my attention to YouTube. Essentially, that would be the platform that I focused everything on, and everything else would essentially just be cake, right? If I gained LinkedIn followers, whatever that might be, if I created an audience there, it wouldn't be because of the dedicated effort I put in on LinkedIn. It would be an after effect and a positive externality from the stuff I was doing on YouTube. And so essentially I was able to use that tunnel vision to focus on what exactly I needed to do on YouTube to grow. To me, being able to narrow it down, use like a 80-20 principle or a one thing principle where you're like, hey, these are the things that are going to move the lever the furthest. I need to focus on, like if we're in a boat and one motor is pushing a lot harder and it moves the boat a lot further, we're going to focus our effort on that motor rather than the other ones that aren't as relevant, that aren't going to move the ship quite as far. So I think that it's okay to eliminate. It's okay to like fall behind or if you're doing a newsletter and you're doing a podcast and you're doing YouTube, like you should get a head start with one of those and it'll carry everything else. To me, it's not efficient, or it's a bad idea to start all three of those at the same time and expect to have success in any of them. So I would always look to what you can trim down. What is, like what's not going to detract from your brand, what's not going to detract from whatever you're putting out there. But also think about, hey, I'm going to focus my attention on what does move me the furthest, what is going to create the most impact. And you are inevitably going to have to sacrifice something, but you can make like efficient sacrifices that create momentum or that create like huge surplus in other areas.
Ken, thank you so much, man. If there's one person to take advice from on that front, it's that man right there. Ken, thank you so much. Vin, let's go to you. Let's hear about this. The first kind of question that Antonio was asking was all about getting over that hump of just deciding to push the content out. What was that like for you?
It was interesting. I started originally on Twitter I think I started my account in 2010, and I actually started using my account intelligently in 2012. Same thing with LinkedIn. I started actually using LinkedIn in 2012, but I had that forever. And the first thing I did was curation. I didn't think about it so much intentionally as to what I was doing, but curation for me was a great way to start creating a voice for myself, because I was using my ability, my filter, and my ability to say, okay, this is important. This is excellent content here. Check this out. This is why this is important was like my next thing. Then I was saying, okay, read this because it's important and here's why. And it was cyclical. I started developing my voice through, going sort of standing behind other people first, and then explaining pieces of why this is important second. And then that pushed me to have enough confidence to start posting on a regular basis on Twitter and then on LinkedIn. And so that was the gateway for me. It went from curation to find my own voice, and then realizing that people actually wanted to hear my opinion. And that was the interesting thing, was going from, why would anyone care about what I have to say, to, oh, wow, why do so many people care what I have to say? And it was that process of discovery for me that I realized people wanted to listen to me. And then I had to go backwards and figure out why they wanted to listen to me. And then I worked backwards to who was listening to me. What was I actually influencing? Because I ran into somebody who probably doesn't want me to drop his name, but ran into somebody who said, okay, define influencer. And that was one of those, well, I guess you would have to influence people to do something. You would actually have to get people to act, get people to think, get people to do. And that started me on the journey of, okay, so I want to influence people. What do I want to influence them to do? What do I want to teach them? What do I want to expose that I don't think people are talking about enough? What parts of the field are undercovered? What parts of the field and what people in the field? And, you can hear this evolution. And this was really over the course of 7 years, going from doing this unintentionally to doing this more intentionally, picking the topics that I thought were worth going after. And now I'm at the point where I really have some fairly well-defined lanes. I have the channels that I use. I just opened up YouTube because I think a lot of junior level and early career level data scientists like YouTube. And I think I can also teach some more complex concepts using video than I could using blogs, which is where I started out. And I see things like LinkedIn sort of falling behind in reaching people and as a creator platform, and hopefully they'll be fixing that. And that's another piece of the puzzle, is looking at how all of these platforms have evolved and some have fallen behind, and being ready to, like, I have 100 and something thousand followers on LinkedIn, and I'm probably going to be moving away from LinkedIn unless they move their needle forward for getting people, involved in content creation. And so now I'm looking at Substack and having a different relationship with newsletters. And, so the final piece that I'll say is, if I could do one thing better, I would have figured out how I was going to monetize from the beginning, rather than getting, a few years into my content creator career. And then in like 2017, 2018, going, wait a minute, you mean you can make money doing this? Okay, so how am I going to make money doing this? And it was sort of backwards, where, if you're going to be a creator, always expect to get paid. Don't feel bad about expecting to get paid for sharing your ideas, your knowledge, and your abilities, and figure out how to monetize up front. And then keep those two strategies of, I'm providing a great resource to people in the community, but at the same time, there's a return. I should be getting some cash out of this, and figure out how you're going to do that.
Yeah, it's one thing I was talking with Ken about yesterday as well, was figuring out ways to get some support and funding, monetization for some of this, like, effort. It's a lot of effort, man, putting in like content, creating content. It's definitely not easy.
Yeah, I would actually push back against that a little bit.
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg, but I actually don't think you should get into content creation for the finances, because I think you'll hit a threshold where like money, monetization of this comes at the long way into the journey, regardless of how you approach it, at least from my experience. And if your goal is to get to that monetization threshold, you're going to have to put in hours and hours of work, hundreds of hours of work to be able to get there. And if I'm not saying that then I know money is not the only driver for you, but if your sole focus is that monetization, let's say you're a data scientist, your hourly rate, my hourly rate for content creation still is less than $20 per hour, right? For the amount of time that I put in. So if you're going down that route for the monetization purpose, really difficult road. And for me, I had to freaking love it. I had to like the community building. I had to like some of these other stuff before I flipped on that monetization switch. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had, I haven't had longevity yet. I've only been doing this for a couple of years, but I don't think I would have been around as long as I've been, because I would have been pretty discouraged pretty fast.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. No, 100% agree with you on that. Greg, you had a comment there?
No, I was going to say, I was following something very interesting on about YouTube, like the big influencers that push many videos and things like that kind of, create so many videos, and in one time they just scale exponentially. So what I've heard is in order to avoid, and they do so without knowing, and the successful ones, the successful creators on YouTube, they avoid being one-hit wonders because of that pile of videos they've built over the years. So to the point of Vin and Ken, this is actually what drives the most value. So you get to a point where you make that one video that gives you 1 million+ views, but people get tired quickly and you might become a one-hit wonder. But when you have a portfolio of videos of subjects that people can go back, that's what really helps you drive your follower base. So it's really important to not focus on just making that one thing that gives you a lot of views, but really increasing that list of portfolio of subjects, given that they do enhance your brand and they do address the issues that you want to address.
Yeah, man, excellent points. Antonio, hopefully you get some good tips there, and hopefully you start pushing some stuff out and getting that content out there. I mean,
yeah, no, it's been good. I guess for me it was, so I spoke at one of my old college classes, and a lot of the kids started asking about resume advice. So I kind of made a video, and I was like, all right, I'm keep repeating myself. Let me just send it out there. And that video did great. I posted it on Reddit, and it ended up picking up within like my first video within an hour, like 600 likes. It went up to like 10,000 views on YouTube, you know, within like a day. So which I wasn't looking for that. So I was like, all right, so let's start doing some more stuff. And while I do think resume building is important, I keep telling them like, okay, how do you interview? Once you get the job, how do you succeed? I think like one of my other videos is about networking after your first job. And I just got stuck at that point where all the people that were following me now just cared about getting that one job. And I'm like, I like helping you with the job, but you got to realize that it's a very, very long journey. And it seemed to be the community or the people I was building was they would come to me, get the resume advice, they get the job, and they disappear off of the face of the earth. And, you know, and they weren't kind of following the other stuff. So that's why I kind of had that a little bit of a downtime trying to really see where to focus, because I do, like I said, I like helping them with the resume, but I think I want to go beyond that. So I think I just got to keep going and just find the right audience. But at the same time, like you guys are saying, I guess if people just want a job, then and I can help them with that, then maybe I should just roll with that.
I'm actually always fighting that. So a lot of my content is for people in the early stages of data science, right? And I'm seeing the exact same thing. Once they get a job, they just don't watch as much content from me because that's what their initial focus is. Right. And I think that it's okay to even niche down within that and to say, hey, this is what our focus is, but to also have little tidbits that push that journey further. So, you know, through my content, I have some tutorial stuff. I also have some advice on the job stuff. And inevitably, after someone gets a job and they're already familiar with you, once they have a question related to that domain, they'll probably come back and take a look at it. So it might not be viral content. You might not get as many views, but I look at those things as longer term content, things that something that's evergreen where people are going to continue to refer back to. And I wouldn't look at it in terms of chasing the audience. I'd think about it of the life cycle of these individual people and where you can make touch points with them. So like it might be a year down the road. It might be 6 months down the road, but they probably will come back if they do have a question. And it's awesome if you have content for them right when they're ready for it. So I would start thinking about it like, hey, let's go on the journey with them. Where do I want to be in their life? And where does it make sense? And make content around that. But also make content you want to make, where you think the advice is going to be the best, because you're going to like love making that content. It's going to be so much more fun. So that's kind of where I would leave that one.
I like that. No, thank you. That's great advice. Maybe we can build a predictive model to predict their next problems and we'll all share those.
You can go through all the comment data on my videos if you want. There's a lot of recommendations there.
Once Harpreet masters NLP, we'll get him to do it.
Man, that'll be fun. Right on, man. Hey, great conversation, everybody. I loved it. Thanks for helping me kick it up, Antonio. Appreciate that. Appreciate the question kicking it off. Christian, you've got a question. Where did Christian go? Is he still here?
Yep, still here. Cut off the video for a second there.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
you're not actually driving right now, are you? Because try to be safe.
Nope.
All right, good.
Nope. I'm about to just picking up groceries. I'm here with my son, and he said, hey, that guy has a really smooth voice. You should tell him to do some ASMR videos. So, yeah, that's the host. Now, my question is just around opportunities and solutions and frameworks, especially curious to hear from the data standpoint. But, you know, do you guys have favorite frameworks or approaches you like to use to, develop solutions and or identify high priority opportunity areas? You can think about it in terms of use cases. It's on my mind because I'm in product management right now, and the better I get at developing that kind of opportunity solution space, the more I see how it applies to pretty much everything. The most important step one seems to be pick a good opportunity, right? So how do you guys go about doing that?
Awesome question, man. Eric, let's go to you for this one. Shout out to Eric.
Yo. So for sizing up like use case opportunities, that I'm not totally sure about. That's something that I'm thinking about a lot as well. And like in kind of on a daily or at least a couple times a week basis as I'm trying to size up different priorities. I think for me, the biggest thing is just like knowing, I just always am going to my stakeholders and trying to understand better, because I just assume and figure that they understand the customer better than I understand the customer. And so I'm just always trying to, how do I get into their shoes better? And then, mostly when I think of frameworks, I've primarily been involved in like process improvement frameworks. So like DMAIC for like Six Sigma, and things like that. But I don't know a whole lot about before that, like the breaking down the define into finer and finer pieces. So I'm listening.
Yeah. Let's go to Vin for this one. Then after Vin, we'll go to Greg. Also, shout out to everybody else in the room. Ashit, what's up? Dylan, what's up? Tor, my man, good to see you back. Jay, Matt, good to see all you guys here. Vin, what's your take on Christian's question about frameworks for identifying opportunities, use cases, things like that?
I actually just did a video on this. Awesome crossover. This is an ancient framework, and it's the concept of portfolio management. This thing's old. Don't use it in strategy planning. But the thought process is still really valid when you're looking at, okay, I have tons and tons of different things that I could possibly be working on. And you look at all of your opportunities. I'm assuming you've identified a good number of opportunities, things that you could potentially be working on. And I would say from a perspective of, okay, I got opportunities now, that's a portfolio basically. And so you want to evaluate all of those ideas based on their potential returns. And that means you're probably talking to a ton of different people who are going to give you opinions on the returns. And then you're going to have to go out and validate which one of those opinions are actually true, which ones, which problems here are worth solving. And you're going to gather a bunch of opinions. You're going to have to review your portfolio, and you're going to have to make a decision based on revenue and impact to the business. You're also going to have to take sentiment into account, all of those opinions and all those interviews, and try to figure out, okay, this is the highest returning with also the highest backing, because you need both. You need money that's significant, but you also need people to care, because you can solve problems and say, hey, this is going to give us a ton of cash. But if no one cares, I don't understand why this is such a hard barrier to get through at the very beginning of machine learning in an organization. But you have to get people to care, even if you tell them, hey, here's a ton of cash. So take those two pieces into account and apply a portfolio management strategy and evaluate them with respect to how much will they grow the business? What is the potential long-term to grow the business? How much room to run? How much market share is available, or how much cost savings total, short-term, and especially some projects have long-term cost savings that are even bigger. So think of it that way.
Greg, let's hear from you. Then after Greg, Ken, and if anybody else wants to jump in on this, please let me know. I'll add you to the queue, or if you have a question, let me know. Add you to the queue. That goes for everybody on LinkedIn, Twitch, and YouTube. Greg, go for it.
Yeah, I'm such a promoter of standardization. If you're in the product space, there's nothing better than creating a standard funnel for hearing the voice of the customer and capturing that feedback as a mechanism to drive the roadmap for your product. So what you will need to spend time on is building that mechanism where you're taking in their feedback. And if it's a team of business folks, have them create, or you need to create a matrix that ranks the ideas, the business ideas, recommendations, or pain points that they're providing to you. And they need to provide justifications. Oftentimes we think, oh, I'm a data scientist, I need to check what the valuation is, what the cost or the benefits will be, what is the revenue and things like that. Have the business folks do it. In your intake mechanism, put all of these requirements. Put a template of questions that they need to ask. They need to read them to make sure that the problems they're bringing to you are in fact solvable by your solutions. So have this mechanism built in a line, give them training on how to fill it up. Then what you will do is in the beginning, it might be hard. You might find people fight it. But once you have it launched, it will be so much easier for you to have business folks to come in and put their ideas, put their pain points in there that will be scored, and that you can append effort to it, because now you already know what the impact is to the business because they've already provided it to you. Once you append the effort, now you have effort and impact. So you can kind of provide some sort of, you're going to trade effort with impact to see what you need to go after. For example, you may see that tackling 3 low effort, low impact pain points is better than focusing high effort to a high impact idea or feature. So you need to make sure you have that process where you're gathering all of these pain points under one mechanism that makes it easy for you to really think about how you need to transform your product or your services that you're providing to your stakeholders. So think about that standardization and you'll be good.
Man, such fire advice from everyone. This is awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. Shout out to everybody else that joined us. Joe in the building. Good to see you, Joe. How you doing? Ronit, what's going on? Dave, my friend, how's it going, man? Spencer's in the building. What's up, Spencer? Jay, what's going on, y'all? If you guys got any questions, please do let me know.
If I can add on to that,
yes, please, absolutely. Go for it.
Yeah, so for the use cases, everything is spot on that Greg and Vin shared. I think also the one thing, and I think we've talked about this before, but it's always also great, like you have multiple use cases, right? And a lot of them are going to make you, let's say, I don't know, like $100 million opportunities, but they might not be easy or they're long-term projects. And if you identify that, in my experience, it's not great to just focus on that, because if you wait too long, be like, hey, I'm going to deliver to you this in like 3 years, the business is going to get discouraged. So you always want to find some low-hanging fruit as well. So maybe find a couple opportunities that are not going to do that kind of like huge $100 million impact. Maybe they'll do $1 million, or whatever it is, but showing those quick wins and be like, hey, we did this in like 3 weeks. Let's see what we can do. So kind of keep them going, kind of you feed them little pieces of bread, until like the dinner finally arrives. And I think that is very important to keep in mind, because otherwise, with the way today's companies work, it's like people move around and things change. So you don't want to wait 5 years or 3 to 5 years to just show like one project that you're going to deliver.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much.
And I got distracted by Mr. Ben with his new hairstyle. I see.
Ben's always got something new going on there.
Real life cyberpunk character.
That's right. I'm just trying to entertain the kids.
That looks awesome, man. Matt Diamond, I saw you trying to unmute there a few times, my friend. Good to see you.
Yeah, no, sorry about good seeing you guys. Hey, to Antonio's point, data science is getting more and more mentions in the public domain. Obviously, it's beyond the buzzwords, but companies are mentioning in their quarterly earnings calls that data science has some major effects on their earnings. I know human capital companies are talking about it. So the quick wins that Antonio just talked about, that's starting to build more and more. So I wouldn't be surprised if your counterparties start to understand that there's actually some tangible impact for data science now. It's more than a conceptual thing these days. That's all I wanted to say.
No, thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate that. Man, speaking of data science, like people keep talking about data science is dead and it's dying or whatever. Ben, what are your thoughts on that?
Data science is dead if it's not delivering value. So I'll get texts where people say, hey, I'm thinking about firing my data science team. But this is because it's been like many, many months with no value. And so I think that's the distinction I'd make. I think good data scientists, they understand the business side. They partner with SMEs. They're not okay with 10, 12, 15 months of academic work. They have a sense of urgency. It's definitely not dead. If anything, I'd say it's expanding. Like, name a department that doesn't need data science. I think that's really hard. Name a job that doesn't need data science. It's like name a job that doesn't need a database, like a SQL database.
Yeah.
So,
Ken, let's hear from you, and then after Ken, we'll go to Joe.
Yeah, honestly, this is a question I get asked a lot on the internet. Is data science saturated? Is auto ML going to take over what I'm doing? Thanks, Ben. But you know, to me, I think that this is a really silly thing. I think people get so excited about what they see the companies who are just elite tech companies who are on the cutting edge, what they're doing, and they forget that like almost every other company, 95% of companies are lagging behind in their analytic capabilities. And a lot of the times you really do have to walk before you can run. You have to create good data infrastructure. You have to do a lot of these other things as prerequisites to performing data science. And so there's going to be this lag of companies that are catching up to the baseline that are going to be needing to hire data engineers, data scientists, machine learning engineers, whatever it might be. And that's going to be over the course of the next 10, 15 years. Like companies, big companies, if anyone's worked in one, they move really freaking slow. And the idea that like we're losing data science jobs, there aren't going to be any around, they're going to be taken over, to me is ludicrous because yes, technology moves fast, but people inherently don't move very fast, especially if they're associated with a very large organization. That's nothing to say that some of these organizations that are on the cutting edge aren't moving fast. They find unique ways or whatever works for them to be able to do that. But to me, there's a really hopeful message is that there's a lot of opportunity in data science. And knowing that, hey, I might not work at a Google or an Amazon or whatever it might be, you know, the data science in those domains might be very different. But in industry and a lot of these other places where they aren't initially focused on technology, I believe there's going to be an unbelievable amount of opportunity within this field or with what you can do going forward. So I'll probably make a video on that at some point. But to me, it frustrates me to see that question because what we're seeing in a small segment of the industry is not representative of all of business.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. I agree. And just, that fact about big companies moving slow. Yes, they move slow, very slow. Joe, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, Ben, Taylor, remember back in the day when like data scientists all thought that like analysts were going to be like dead and it's a dying profession and all this stuff? Because I think Ben and I came up in the data, kind of the machine learning epoch about the same time in the same city, actually. So
Joe has aged a lot better than I have. His models work.
Both look
Ben's
great.
Only 18 years old. Too. This is crazy. But I mean, analysts were written off for dead. And SQL is written off for dead. And I think that's actually the best time to get into something because like that means the hype cycle is starting to wear off. And now you're going to start producing more value. So whenever something's written off for dead, I always get really skeptical, and I think it's actually probably the best time to get into something, honestly, because then that means all the posers and people are kind of leaving. So,
do you think that in the next coming years that the skill sets that many data scientists possess, for example, being able to code, quantitative skills, reasoning, things like that, are going to be requirements for this, new phase of white collar jobs that are emerging or no collar type of jobs that are coming out? Does that question make sense?
Kind of.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is everybody going to need to have some basic level of data science skills going forward now that data's everywhere, data's everything? Ben or Joe, go for it.
They have to be able to scope a problem. They don't have to be able to solve it. So if I am like if I'm working in marketing or in sales or somewhere, I need to be able to say, oh, I think this could be an opportunity for my data science team. If I can define a problem, I feel like everyone should be able to do that. But just like you don't know how, most of us don't understand how our engines work in our cars. Like it is the tool mindset, right? Like, I actually have to jump to another meeting, but it's good to see you all. Yeah, man, there's some celebrities in here. See, nothing but celebrities.
Oh geez, man.
Celebrity party. I think, and I'd like to get Ken's opinion on this too. I think that there's like data literacy is definitely, I think, going to be more important for damn sure. Like, but being able to formulate a question and a hypothesis and use data to solve it. But that also means you're going to be working hand in hand with people who can probably implement a way to solve it. But yeah, I see data literacy becoming more and more key. I don't think it's a skill that you could be without if you're in any sort of business role, unless you're like a carpenter or something. It doesn't matter.
So what about when it comes to you asked a question here about, or you mentioned about being able to come up with a question. Ben talked about scoping a problem. I'm wondering what are some kind of I guess frameworks, for lack of a better word, that you guys have when it comes time to formulate a question or scope a problem. Vin, what about you? Then after that, we'll go to whoever else, maybe Greg.
So you're talking about scoping a problem, or are we on the other question?
Well, yeah, I guess that's the scope.
Before we move on to scoping, you mind if I say one quick thing on the other question?
Yeah.
In terms of skills for the future, I think that problem solving, or the ability to like identify problems and also start getting to the solution, kind of piggybacking what Ben said, is always going to be important. And the way we do that is probably going to change in the foreseeable future, the tools that we use, whatever that might be. But being able to, getting to the next question, create some frameworks or use some existing frameworks that allow you to do that more effectively is what a service economy is going to be about. So if we're moving away from manufacturing, we're moving away from whatever it might be in the US, teaching frameworks for thinking, potentially, making tools easier to digest or whatever it might be, those are going to be the skills that are important to learn. As someone who sees a lot of new tools, a lot of new things in data science, the most important skill that I see for data scientists to have is to pick things up quickly. So if I see a new library that's out there and I'm like, wow, I want to use that, I know I can probably learn that in a couple hours if I need to. And same thing goes for anyone in a skilled labor type of position, is that, hey, I have to solve this problem. I can use XYZ tools to solve this. Can I pick up those tools because there's an abundance of them and be able to make them useful to me?
Absolutely. Learning how to learn is a skill and a superpower, which is why you guys should tune into the episode I released today with Barbara Oakley, where we talk about learning how to learn. Did it for y'all. Greg, let's hear from you, and then also Vin on actually, a combination of both questions. I know that the first question I asked is, will everybody need to be quote unquote a data scientist or possess data science skills? And also, if you can talk about problem scoping or question definition as well, either or, go for it, Greg.
Yeah, I wanted to build on what Ken was saying too, and everybody else about is data science. That what people don't tend to forget is that I don't think you can replace the ability to run experiment to gather more data. You will find situations where you don't have enough data on hand to answer what is the best way to solve a problem, and for that you have to run experiment and capture data to perform, take action, and that data is critical for knowing what kind of model you need to build to go after the solution you're trying to implement. And these involves, especially data scientists, to design those tests, to test those hypotheses, ask the right questions, and run these experiments and capture the right data for that. So when I hear is data scientist leaving, that's not true. How are you going to automate that when use cases are so different and so unique? That's why experimental design exists. Each of these experiments need to be customized to the solution you're trying to bring together. And for that, you need experts for this. And this is not going away. And it's a powerful thing within the data science community, especially when they partner with behavioral economics experts, marketing experts, you name it. How do I know how many, for example, marketing emails I should send to my customers to boost revenue? Do I know if it's 3, 5, 4? How do I run an experiment for that? How do I capture that data to see, whether it's successful or not? And based on that data, how do I build a model that tells me what's the optimal amount of subscription or emails to send to my subscribers to boost revenue? Those are those are questions that cannot be automated. They need humans to test. In terms of scoping, it's a long process. Through my experience, it has taken me 3 months plus to even scope. And what I mean by scope is defining the problem, aligning with stakeholders, and coming up with a high level solution. So a high level design for that solution. So it takes an effort between the tech folks and the business folks. So the business folks, one, have to agree that, yes, this problem cannot be solved by anecdotes or heuristics. So it can't be something like, oh, we know if they, I'll give you a quick example. If they agreed to onboard our tool after the free trial, most likely they will purchase more products from us, right? So this is something that doesn't need any computer. You want to make sure that the problems you're tackling, it cannot be answered easily just by a simple question. It cannot be answered by a human. It needs discovering patterns in data. Once you able to convince business folks that, yes, you cannot just bring your intuition into this, it needs more than that, then the business can move on to another thing, which is, okay, what is at hand? Who do I need help from? We go to, okay, we need help from data scientists who can help us answer those questions we cannot answer just by looking at data with our raw eyes. This is where you go into now involving data scientists for the scoping piece in terms of what are you experiencing in terms of pain point? What is the data that you have? Is ML a viable solution? Do you have the right data already available to run some analysis, perform some basic statistics, and see where you are, and then start thinking about what is the end point, what is the outcome that you want from this. And now with this outcome, what is the action as a business stakeholder you need to take based on that output? And that's where a lot of people are stuck. We can build models very easily, and then what do we do with it? We have a model that makes many inferences, that makes many predictions, and we're stuck with those values, and we can't take any actions, or we can't take actions fast enough. So at scoping, at the business problem understanding, you need to already have an idea of what needs to happen before you go into building. And that's the framework I usually use.
I like that a lot. Is there like a maybe it's not a subtle difference, maybe there's no difference between asking a question and then like kind of scoping out the question? Because I feel like asking a question is kind of just, colliding ideas, kind of creative, but then once you start scoping the question or scoping the problem, that's more active. You really start designing type of an experiment or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the funny thing is the business folks most likely will come with a problem. The questions are typically coming from the data scientist. Hey, does that make sense? Is this really true? Like, can you give me a proof of that? Can you show me where this is coming from? How is that data populated right there? How do you collect this piece of data? Because they want to remove themselves from the whole intuitive, I've seen this for 5 years, I know it's true type of mentality that typically the business folks will bring. And they want to be as neutral as possible and listen to what the data is saying. And then when you go into the whole business deep dive, it's another painful one, because now as a business guy, you want to make sure you go through the whole process with your data scientists so they can understand the origination of these events that create data. And that data is going to be used to form the solution. So funny enough, those questions are coming mostly from the technical side than the business folks themselves.
Vin, let's hear from you. And by the way, if anybody has any questions or comments or wants to add to this particular topic, please do let me know. I'll add you to the queue. Everyone's voice is welcome here. Go for it, Vin.
So when it comes to, I'm going to answer this backwards. When it comes to scoping, you've got sort of these extremes, and everybody in business is on someplace on this scale between I have a data scientist and I have no idea what to do with them, to I have an organization that's ready to do a lot of the more rigorous activities involved in scoping correctly. And so you have to, at the very beginning, figure out from a maturity standpoint, where is your business? I'd say more than half of data scientists were hired to tell the business what to do with the data scientist. I would say that's probably about half. I don't have don't ask me for data. I don't have it. I'm kind of making that up. So I would say about half, and I'm tripling down on it. Yes, no data. But you're looking at a process, and Greg's got that's the end point. That's getting towards as good as you're going to get as far as a process is concerned. But you're often dealing with organizations that are still trying to figure out what the word digital actually means when it comes to their life. And you have people who have not touched a computer as part of their standard workflow, and they're not used to interacting with that digital piece. And so you're not getting any data at all. I mean, that person might as well be working in the inside of a black hole. We have no idea what this person is doing. And, there's so much of this around, especially bigger businesses that are on that very, very immature side of scoping. And so step one, really, in trying to figure out what you should do as a data scientist is figuring out what level of maturity the business is at. How much of the business can you actually access with data? How much of the business can you even gather data about? How much of the business, and I mean, this is funny, but it's true. How much of the business are people scared of going and looking at? Because there are business units, especially in companies where there's been multiple acquisitions, there are business units that the C-suite is scared of knowing how they work. They continue to create cash and no one wants to know. And so I have to warn everybody that ever goes into scoping, if you don't watch out before you walk into some of these rooms have mines just all over them. And so part of the exercise of scoping is, first things first, go to places where people want you. Figure out what the maturity level is, and then go to places where people want you, and then get those people to talk to other business units. And instead of you saying, hey, why don't you ask me to come in, have those people become your advocates. And then those advocates, those people that are actually promoting you, can get you into rooms that you're not able to get into on your own. And that's how scoping really starts at the wild, wild west phase. And so really look at it from the perspective of, is it possible to do what Greg says to do? Because that's where you want to go. And you're probably going to find out, no, it's not possible right now, but you have to figure out how to get from where you are, and you're just a data scientist. But if you don't do this, your team fails. And I can't emphasize this enough. You don't want to be a strategist. But I'm sorry to tell you, if you're in one of those companies where you're not even digital transformed yet, you're a strategist. I'm sorry. If you don't want to be, it's time to go work at a very mature company where most of this stuff's already been built out. Because otherwise, it's you. Sorry, it is you who's going to have to do all of this. Like I said, I kind of answered the first question and then backed my way into the second one, but hopefully that made sense.
Pretty sure Vin is speaking directly to me, because this was a point of our conversation we had last week. Yeah, man, it's not easy. Ken, go for it.
I actually have a question that comes off the back of that, and I have some thoughts on that, which I will also share. I don't want to frame the discussion too much, but what is the best way to integrate, or what are some unique ways to instigate organizational change in that sense? I found something that has been really powerful but difficult to harness is virality. So if you're building prototypes, you're building tools, and you're sharing them internally, like these things become like shared across your organization, and eventually they reach the top and literally everyone's already using it. And so your kind of bottom up approach to making change. Unfortunately, that's a way that this has to happen a lot of the time, because at the top of a lot of organizations, the CEO, CTO, whoever it might be, is generally can be clueless about what's going on hands-on on the data teams. And I was wondering if people believe that that's a viable long-term approach, the virality aspect, building prototypes and tools and getting people to use these things even before they're necessarily called for, or they've, like the plan around these things have been put together, project scoped, whatever that might be. Or is there a better way to get through to organizations where at the top they just don't get it? Is there another way to force their hand?
Antonio, I feel like you might have some good insight here. What do you think?
So I think I've tried kind of both approaches, where we used to say like, well, I'm going to put it in front of you and you're going to see how cool it is. And then you're going to start using it. And I think it does work up to a certain point because they like the prototype. They're like, oh yeah, that's great. A lot of times it's happened and they're like, we love it. But if it didn't solve, if a lot of times, I guess it differentiate between them saying it, I love it. It's the difference has to be, it's nice to have versus this is business critical. Because a lot of times I've created projects and they're like, oh, I love this. And then after like 2 months, nobody's used it yet. I'm like, well, I thought you said you loved it. And they're like, well, we do love it. But like kind of right now we're focused on something else. That's not really our priority. And I think kind of what has worked for me, because we kind of started a new organization and we're trying to really breaking into these different themes. And the best advice I got was you have to kind of do the dirty work that they don't want to do. Like, so when we would go into the room and it's like, okay, what is like, it's boring, or it's like the dirty data, or they don't want to clean it. Doesn't even provide too much value, but it's kind of, they don't want to do that. So I was like, all right, this work that you don't want to do, I'll do it for you. And then kind of to get on their good side. And then eventually, once you get on their good side, kind of you start instituting those changes, kind of like Ken, what you were saying before. When you make your videos, you kind of like nudge them in a certain direction slowly. So you deliver that. So same thing, it's been, I'm going to give you exactly what you want, even though I think it's not the best solution right now. I'll give that to you. And then slowly I'll start to change it. So hopefully that makes sense. Like if you ask me for a machine learning model and I don't think it's the best use case, but it's not too much work on my end, maybe I'll create that for you, but then I'll try to nudge you into a little bit of a different direction to show you how it could be better.
Is there some value from what you said? What I really liked is creating value for people, saving them time, whatever that might be. That doesn't necessarily like clearly equate to business value, but is that perhaps a way to like essentially like weasel the idea into their head? Is that, hey, like these analytics have created value for me with my time, with my specific job? Is that even more powerful sometimes than creating like millions of dollars for your business? If you save 5 of the people on an adjacent, business unit 5 hours a week because of something you made, and it makes the business, in theory, that makes the business some money, but it's not exactly quantifiable. Does that goodwill carry through? Or is that just like, hey, we made it and it didn't make the business money, and so we're going to abandon these types of things? Well, that's a kind of general question.
Yeah, I think it's weird because ultimately you're dealing with people. And when I was back in like hands-on, I was working with non-technical people, and I automated this one woman's report. She was kind of like a financial analyst, and it was she went from like 40 hours of an analysis to kind of like 15 minutes UI path, like 100% automated. And while that wasn't that transformational value, right? I basically saved her salary, I guess, but I don't know how much she was making. But then after that, like the weird things would happen. Like you're saying with I don't know if it's goodwill or something. It would be like, she will be in another meeting with somebody and they would need some kind of analytics and they don't have an answer. They're like, oh, Antonio, he did some data last time and it worked. Well, let's ask him again, or it was just, and it kind of works for the business as well. I mean, I work at a Verizon. So to move the needle like 1%, it's like a crazy amount of money, but also I think for yourself, it creates that goodwill because ultimately whatever happens to me, Verizon's going to be okay. But me helping out those people kind of, like you're saying, you create value, but you also help yourself, you help your career. It kind of like gets people talking. And then when I ended up switching teams, what I found out was that a lot of the people loved working with me as a data scientist for them, or like data analyst, was because I made them feel safe. Like every time they ask me something, hey, can we do this? I'm like, of course we can. Like, let's go, let's do it. I'll get it done for you. And they kind of like felt very relieved. So like you're saying, those things can be measured, because afterwards I'm like, wait, why do you guys say you miss me? This next person is better than me, obviously, at like coding and doing the data stuff. And then afterwards I realized, well, I made jokes, I made them laugh, I made them feel safe. And ultimately that's what people are there for. You know, they want to work, they want to improve the company, but they also don't want to be miserable. They want to have some fun.
That's an excellent point. Thank you very much, Antonio. Yeah, absolutely. Vin, let's hear from you on this topic.
No, I think it's interesting when you look at this from a short-term perspective. You've got to get those wins, and you've got to get advocates on your side. And, you know, that's something that I talk about a lot, is you got to get some sort of momentum started. And if that means that you have to get one key player on your side by writing a report for them, that takes you, you know, 2 days worth of work and might make the company $25, that's good. Because, you know, it's $25 of real savings, but you have an advocate. And if you spend a month picking up 5 or 10 advocates, you know, during a year, that's not a wasted month, because every single one of those people are going to allow you access to other parts of the organization, because you simply don't have the relationships yet. And so that's part of building out a new organization. And, you know, this, I'm kind of talking down the road, but you are building a data and analytics organization. You know, and again, this is back to whether you know it or not, you're doing a lot of this stuff and you're laying the groundwork for a lot of the ideas that are more complex, more revenue generating. And so that's your beginning. But you also have to remember the C-suite is lurking, and they're the sharks swimming in the amount of money that you cost, and you cost a lot. And at some point, somebody is going to look at a data science group and say, okay, I need to see revenue, not so much cost savings. Somebody's going to say, look, I need to see revenue, because, you know, you talk about finance as a group. Yeah, you need finance, but are they a revenue generator? So they have a really hard time getting budget for big initiatives unless they make it a strategic initiative. And you don't want to have to do this long sales pitch for everything that you do. So at some point, you have to start generating revenue for the company. And so you have to translate all of that goodwill into a product line, or at least into a main feature in the largest product line. You have to start putting revenue around your neck. You have to, you know, put that around so you can walk around with, okay, I have advocates, and check it out, I have a dollar value now too. And that's really, there's a transition point where you have to go from small projects, little quick wins that prove and build relationships, to I have cash, I make money. Please don't destroy my team, because you're building a data and analytics organization. And you're going to have to get justification for infrastructure to do meaningful projects. You're going to have to justify headcount. You're going to eventually take over resources from other organizations, which no one's going to be happy about. And you have to have C-suite buy-in for that, because you have to bring this all under one roof. And so everything that I'm talking about is this sort of walking towards something that is sustainable, revenue generating versus cost center. And that is now a strategic business unit, not just a team of data scientists. And so, yeah, you definitely start wherever you find yourself, but realize that you have to quickly move someplace much, much further forward.
Man, so many knowledge bombs. That's phenomenal. Vin, thank you. You know what would be an awesome podcast? The Vin Fascista on Kansas Nearest Neighbors. I think that'd be a good episode. You guys should make that happen sometime.
Literally just sent him the invite. So,
Greg, go for it.
Yeah, I fully agree with what Vin said. I think for me, the best framework is to have a scrappy solution that gets you the quick win that Vin was talking about. And those quick wins, they need to be directly connected to some sort of sales, additional sales that you're generating for the business. With that scrappy solution, you need to find your champion. Your champion is a stakeholder who may be a decision maker or somebody who will speak on your behalf. And that champion you will already talk to that champion about your big vision, the opportunity. What is the big opportunity out there if you build that scrappy solution into a fully functional product? That person already needs to understand and align with you on that. And then once you have that person, then you prepare what I call some sort of what if analysis with options that you can present to larger group of stakeholders. You always want to leave the decision maker with options. And in that technique, to me, it's about putting the fear of missing up an opportunity. And in this sense, you have option A that gives you, if you go after this is the opportunity this will give you. Data already shows you that a scrappy solution is resulting to these added sales to your business. If you give me a budget, I will be able to go after this bucket right here, which is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Option B gives you another type of bucket, and option C, potentially it may be the worst case scenario. We're getting lost footage, missing opportunities, and letting our competitors take over from us. When you do this, you let the decision maker analyze what you have done in a quick, short time period to generate value, and also what could be in terms of opportunity, and also what they would miss if they don't take action. This is all you need: a champion, a scrappy solution, and a framework to help the decision maker make a decision at a fast pace and give you some budget to go forward.
This is one of those episodes I'll be listening to again and again. Thank you very much, everybody. Nisha, real quick, you had some awesome comments here about defining the question. I'd love to have you unlock it from the chat and share it with us.
Yeah, so I was more talking in terms of my experience. Trying to define a question is, it's helpful, but it's not always easy to do that when you are talking with so many stakeholders. And at the same time, everybody telling you, especially me as a public servant, I work for the state government. So we are obligated to answer questions that come from the public. And everyone is throwing out a million questions that come to you at the same time. So you need to narrow down which ones are you going to answer and will we be able to answer. So that's just, I think, more applicable to my area. I'm not sure how other domains usually use, but I think from a government perspective, when there are so many questions that the public ask and when you are obligated to answer all those, it's definitely difficult to frame that question and then figure out if you do have the data. So there is an initial exploring of data that needs to happen to some extent before you can actually frame the question and then take it forward through the data cycle.
No, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know if that a lot of our audience works for the government, so that's awesome to have that kind of unique insight there. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any other questions or any other comments on what we're talking about? Eric, any comments on what we were talking about earlier? Good. Russell, any comments? I think Russell might have froze on us. All right, guys, does not look like there are any more questions or comments. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your schedule to hang out. Definitely an awesome session. Probably one of my favorite ones, number 40, man. It's a good one. I'm looking forward to listening to this one again and again. Guys, take care. Make sure you check out the episode that I released earlier today with Barbara Oakley, Learning How to Learn. Don't forget to join in on the Sunday office hour session. None of you guys ever show up. Why you guys leave me hanging on Sunday mornings, man? Come hang out with me. Come hang out. It'll be fun. And next week, big episode being released. One that I'm really happy about is with the one and only James Altucher. James has been like such a huge influence on me over the last year or so. And just getting him on the podcast was mind blowing. So definitely check that out. Yeah, guys, take care. Have a great rest of your evening, rest of the weekend. Hopefully see you guys on Sunday. And as usual, my friends, remember, you've got one life on this planet. Why not try to do something big? Cheers, everyone.